Believe it or not, there's a connection between the Freemasons, the ancient Mayans, and the ancient Egyptian god Osiris, and they all point to the year 2016. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert in studio with my best friend and wife, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, honey.
And the author of a book that is very timely and very conveniently has the name of the year in the name, Zenith 2016, Skywatch TV CEO Tom Horn. Hi, Tom. You did some really remarkable research, some dots connected here that were eye-popping. You've done it in 2012 and again in 2016. What were the Mayans seeing, and what are some of the other, well, even Christian pastors and preachers, famous ones, who pointed to this period of time that we're in right now as being especially significant?
Yeah, you know, this was probably one of the most incredible periods of study for me and research. And a lot of people that have read Zenith 2016, you know, they say that's my magnum opus. It's the best thing I ever did. And it's probably because it was actually the last time I had an entire year that I could dedicate to just doing research and writing. So it was timely. But what had happened was, you know, as you know, everybody in 2005, 6, 7, 8, they were all saying that the Maya had said that the world was going to end in the year 2012, right? And so I, at that time, had just kind of a mild curiosity about it, but I wanted to find out, what did the Maya really say? Is this all just a bunch of New Agers? They're making up stuff, or they're kind of, you know, misquoting the Maya, or what was going on? And so I wound up getting the research information from an academic by the name of Richard Luxton. And he was the guy that befriended the modern Maya and got permission from them after he gained their trust to translate a book called the Book of the Kumayel, or the Council Book of the Yucatecan Maya, that had been written down over 500 years ago, and he translated it into English. And so his was the work that I was following, and was learning that no, the Maya never said the world was going to end in the year 2012. What they said was more interesting to me because it started sounding very much like the prophecy off the Great Seal of the United States, the Novus Ordo Seclorum.
Yeah.
What they were saying was, at the end of the long count in December 21st, 2012, essentially the cosmos was going to roll over into a final age of mankind, a final epoch that would witness some stuff that sounded like it was taken right out of the book of Revelation. Two great men would appear on the earth, sounded like the false prophet and the Antichrist. And then the judgment of God with famine and pestilence, and sounding like the Great Tribulation,
very much so,
right?
yeah.
So I started really getting into it, but I literally sat up in bed one night after I had read where Richard Luxton wrote this. So I'm laying there in bed one night, I'm saying the illustrations prophecies about the Chilambalam sure remind me of the Sybil Jaguar shaman here, the Chilambalam. And wait a minute, 1776, that's the base said and provided even pyramid on the Great Seal, which also was a convert to Christianity. And some of the leading American Freemasons had always said he was mixing his 13 steps represented with what he was finding in the apocryphal books of the Bible. So I got out, you know, and he was prophesying my copy of the Great Seal. And what Luxton 1776 started counting the cartoons, 19.7 years, and saw where he got to the top, which is a period of 19.7 years. I don't want to get us buried here in details, 2012. But he said also found out that the Gregorian calendar began in what he called the colonial count was 20 years, and that ended in 2016, which would be followed by 3.5 years later. So I literally came out of my bed and said, wait a minute, this can't possibly, if it's a coincidence, it's a doozy, right?
Yeah.
To have 1776, 13 steps over which is hanging the all-seeing eye. And so that kind of launched me in the book Zenith 2016. And what people will find when they get that book and read it, they'll be astonished at how over thousands of years and from all kinds of cultures that had no connection. You know, this was before the internet and iPhones and all that, right? No way to communicate. They all were fixating on the year 2012 and 2016. The Maya were fixated on it. The Aztec had their own cosmology about the end time, and they talked about the year 2012. Soon after, they said, Bolan Yakteku, the god of the underworld, who is down there guarding the bones of the giants. They say he holds the key to the bottomless pit. In Mayan cosmology, they say he's going to rise up to the surface of the earth and the giants are going to come with him. And then these 9 support gods are going to descend down from the heavens. So it sounds like great deception, and the pit is opening up from the book of Revelation, and the giants are coming up out of the earth.
The Aeneid.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So, but one thing led to the other. I found that Jonathan Edwards, at the turn of the century, writing letters at the university level saying the Antichrist will appear in the year 2016. We found in the Zohar, because I had sent out this email. When this came to me in a revelation, I got up and got on my computer, right? Emailed every smart person I know. Everybody's smarter than me. I need to ask you a question, right? And it was, do you know of any connection with the Great Seal of the United States and Mayan prophecy? And we can talk a bit more about how I connected those dots in a moment. But J.R. Church, right, who used to lead Prophecy in the News and got cancer, died a few years ago, he emailed me back and he said, Tom, he said, I don't know anything about the Great Seal, but he said, did you know that in the Zohar, the rabbis from 700 years ago pinpointed when the Messiah would appear? And in the Zohar, in the Vieira section of the Zohar, he showed me this. I went and read it and found it. And, it said that in the year 5773, the Messiah will make himself known privately to the rabbis in Israel. 5773 in the in the Jewish calendar was 2012 to 2013 in the Gregorian calendar. So that was what JR wanted me to know, that they had saw the year 2012 too, right?
Yeah.
Another group of people 700 years ago writing in medieval Aramaic. And this book, of course, the Zohar, is very important to Kabbalistic rabbis, mystical rabbis. And so anyway, I found that. What I've noticed is interesting is the way that it's written in there. It sounds like it is even part of the prophecy of the popes, in that they say that the Messiah will appear in Jerusalem in 2012 to 2013, make himself known to the rabbis in Jerusalem, and sometime after that, he will begin making himself known to the people of the world. Well, you and I know that since then until even just this last week, major rabbis in Israel, several of them, their most respected rabbis, saying that the Messiah is here and his manifestation is imminent, even telling the kids that are going to their, to the rabbi schools not to leave Jerusalem and be traveling. It's that imminent. It's that close to him.
And they're pointing to very specific prophecies issued by rabbis from several hundred years ago. The Vilna Gaon is one in particular. The genius of Vilna, which is the capital of Lithuania, said that the Messiah would appear after Russia took Constantinople, which is Istanbul, and the Crimea. Now, of course, Russia captured the Crimea from Ukraine in spring of 2014, and now with the feud going on between Russia and Turkey, the Russians still haven't really paid back Turkey for shooting down that plane in November. So there are some possibilities there that we might see some open conflict, especially as the Turks are agitating for an invasion of Syria where there are Russian soldiers deployed. So that's just one instance where the rabbis today are saying this from 300 years ago says that we should be looking for Messiah's appearance imminently. And there are groups of rabbis who have opened office in Jerusalem specifically to search with computer algorithms the Torah codes, looking through the numerical Hebrew equivalents to find messages, and the years 5775, 5776 keep appearing over and over. And that would be the period of time from September of 2014 through October of this year, 2016. So,
well, I just was going to say earlier, you talked about how we were sort of fed the lie that 2012 actually was the end of the world. And of course, we all dismissed it and said, hey, we're still here. Yay, 2013 is here. The fact is, I think the majority of people, not you folks watching this show because you guys know better, the majority of people in the world think that, oh, we dodged a bullet in 2012. We're still here. They're not paying any attention to any of this, but it's right here in the open if we just look.
Right. Well, there are videos from 2008 and 2009 where I was doing shows with Gary Stearman on Prophecy in the News and Sid Roth, and I was saying that's not what the Maya said. They're not saying the earth is going to end in 2012. What they were saying was more interesting, and it sounds very much like they were, they're quoting the Novus Ordo Seclorum, that there is going to come the dawn of a final age of man. Now, here's another thing that's very interesting is when you read the Novus Ordo Seclorum and Coeptus. These are taken from Virgil's Aeneid and his Eclogue, in which he's actually quoting the Cumae Sibyl, the most powerful Sibyl or Sibylline prophetess, who was a prophetess of the god Apollo.
Yes. Apollyon.
Yeah, what the New Testament would call Apollyon, the very spirit that's going to come up out, there he comes, Bolagnac Deku and all the giants, right? From their mythos to ours, because demons also know that this is going to happen. And so they try to capture those stories, misguide people into making it appear as if they're the ones with the revelation. Like the Sibylline prophetess did in the New Testament, where she's following the Apostle Paul around saying, these are men of God, in order to try to stake some kind of claim that she too is a true prophetess
and so Paul
of God.
drove the demon out of her. Yeah.
So he gets frustrated and casts the demon out of her, and then everybody's mad now. Yeah. But so now these rabbis, though, they're behaving as if they're either total believers, or somebody has made himself known to them, because that's actually how they're talking. They're saying he's here, and he's going to manifest himself. Now you've got a pope who also is a believer in prophecy. He not only is a believer in prophecy, he's also started to prophesy, and that's kind of spooky. He's now telling people, get ready, the end is here, you need to prepare yourself. He's saying these things himself.
And he believes 2016 is special too, because he declared this a year of grace.
Yes, and to that end, it was just announced just prior to the recording of this that he's sending out over 1,100 specially handpicked super confessors to hear the confessions of people who have committed what they call reserved sins under Roman Catholic doctrine, sins that normally only the Pope can forgive and offer absolution for. Because apparently they feel that something is happening and they need to expedite the process. They don't have time to go through the special Vatican Council, which was the normal process, going back to the 12th century. Now, we know this is not biblical. And we know that the only sin that is really unforgivable is blaspheming the Holy Spirit. So we're not saying that this is authentic doctrine, but we're trying to understand what they believe. The Pope, the rabbis, these other folks who are looking for these years to try to understand why they believe what they believe and how it will affect how they act. But clearly the Pope is believing that something is happening soon. That they're even delegating one of these super confessors to go to the Arctic Circle and hear the confessions of Eskimo.
Right.
Okay, so this is something unique.
And we're trying to cover so many bases in this one show, but this even goes into the ISIS apocalyptic vision, where they believe that Muhammad showed them, 400 some years ago, or at least a hadith ascribes him prophesying this war that would come at the end of time. But they've made a video that shows them, marching on Rome, behind the Colosseum, and they come down into Rome. But they're, in their apocalyptic end time vision, there will be an army called the Army of Rome. Maybe something is going to happen. This is what I suspect. Something is going to happen. Maybe ISIS uses a weapon of mass destruction, which then causes a coalition army to come together. But the Pope calls for the rejuvenation of the Christian rules for just war.
Just war.
And if he does do that, as far as both the world and the Muslims would see this as a battle being fought under the banner of Rome. So it really feels like there are a lot of people that believe that the year 2016, and they have for thousands of years, is very, very significant. Now, we're going to find out. By the way, I'm not saying that in 2016, we're going to enter the Great Tribulation or the Antichrist is going to appear or anything else. What I am saying is when you read that book, you'll find out that dozens of people for thousands of years did say that. And that's really the question of the book. Why?
Well, why were the disciples inspired to ask Jesus himself, what are the signs of the end of the age?
Yeah, what are the signs of the end of the age? And as David Flynn, our old friend that's, in heaven now, talking this over with people smarter than I am, obviously.
But his brother Mark is carrying on.
But he said that he was talking about the precision of the equinoxes and that sort of thing, David, right?
Oh, gosh.
I can barely quote him well.
Josh Peck could follow it.
But he said that the conditions of the stars were exactly the same in the days of Noah as they would be following the year 2012. So that when Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, he was talking about the alignment of the planets and a lot of other really deep things being the same as
If that's new to you, by the way, you have the David Flynn collection.
Yeah, we do have the David Flynn collection. They can get it and read Greater Minds Than Mine. But the Cherokee Indians, 200 years ago. And you can get these at the academic level. They're called the Chickamauguan Star Constellation prophecies, or more simply, the rattlesnake prophecies.
Yeah.
200 some years ago, they go into a whole apocalyptic frenzy, and they write down how in the year 2012, the end of this era will come. Following that will be a final era of mankind. But they saw the return of what the Aztec would call Quetzalcoatl, what the Maya call Kukulkan, right? This serpent that has the power of air, sometime shortly thereafter, 2012, returning. Well, this is the book of Revelation, and this great war between God and the dragon, right?
Yeah.
Well, we need to take a break, but I want to ask when we come back how the Freemasons managed to incorporate this period of time, this step pyramid, and leading to the period of time that we're in right now into the Great Seal. We'll discuss that and tell you how you can get a copy of Zenith 2016 when Skywatch TV continues after this. On the back of the dollar bill in your wallet is apparently a prophecy that points to the year in which we are living right now. Welcome back to Skywatch TV. We're talking with Tom Horn, the author of Zenith 2016. How did the Freemasons incorporate this into the Great Seal? What did they know about what the ancient Mayans knew?
Yeah, well, you know, and once again, we started the show out early with me saying I literally sat up in bed one day because I'm reading the Maya saying 1776, 13-step countdown, then the return of their God. Well, that's the symbolism on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States, where it's got 1776, 13 steps, and then the all-seeing eye. And I did want to know if that was just an amazing coincidence or if the early Freemasons were influenced by the belief of the Mesoamericans. So I started doing the research, and when people get the book, Zenith 2016, because there's 2 or 3 chapters dedicated to this paper trail, if you will, they'll find out that you know, Manly P. Hall and others said that all of the most esoteric knowledge of the American Freemasons came from the red men out of Mesoamerica. So you start finding out they were heavily influenced. But we found even more evidence than that. There was an Italian painter who was famous by the name of Constantino Brumidi, and he worked for the Vatican and he worked for the churches in Rome doing paintings and stuff. Well, he migrates to the United States in the 1800s. He becomes an American citizen and goes to work for the Jesuits in New York, who were considered at that time to be kind of the real power, right? And certainly Rome's presence and influence in the Americas in those early years. But abruptly in 1854, they send Brumidi to go to Mexico. For what purpose? To make copious notes of the Aztec calendar stone that ends in the year 2012, right? He comes back from that trip. He goes directly to Washington, D.C., where he meets with Quartermaster General Montgomery C. Meigs, who was the guy that was supervising the construction of the dome, the U.S. Capitol dome and the wings of the dome. He's appointed to be, you know, the official government painter. And boy, this could be several shows. He goes inside the U.S. Capitol dome and goes up into the belly of Isis, right? The dome. And he paints the apotheosis of George Washington. George Washington becoming a god. Now, you guys had Mike Heiser on recently talking about the divine council and the 70 angels that were given authority over the nations and then they fell. Well, if you follow that through history, and nobody knows exactly when this happened, but in Gnostic Christianity and in the Rosicrucian and some of the early occult movement, the 70 angels became 72. Nobody knows exactly when or why that happened, but they became 72. Well, in the apotheosis of Washington, right below it are 72 pentagrams for the purpose of controlling these angels that are over the world. It's highly occultic in nature. Right below that is what's called the frieze of American history. Now, if you can still, I think you can still go on a tour of the Capitol Dome. Go inside and stand under the dome. Look at the frieze of American history. And of all of the things that Constantino Brumidi could have painted, right, in the frieze of American history, he paints Montezuma and Cortez meeting each other, and here is the giant Aztec calendar stone that came to its conclusion in the year 2012. But right below that, he paints what's called the sacred fire, which means it relit in December of 2012 to give birth to a final era of mankind. So we were able to find fabulous evidence that the Freemasons were very much aware of the belief system of the Maya and did incorporate it not just into the Great Seal. The entire city is laid out as an ancient Egyptian grid with the dome It's based on the story of Isis and Osiris. But the purpose of those are to serve as a generator to draw the seed of Osiris out of the underworld so that he could be incarnate in the Pharaoh so that Egypt would have divine representation. And we found out that every inauguration of every American president across town at the House of the Temple, the Herodome, the official headquarters of the 33rd degree Freemasons, every time a president's inaugurated, they conduct the raising of Osiris ceremony so that America can have divine representation, but more so that this prophecy can someday be fulfilled and that the leader of America will become Osiris, Apollo, incarnate, what the New Testament would call the arrival of the Antichrist.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, we don't make predictions, we don't set dates, but it is important to understand what other people think because, especially when it comes to occultic beliefs, to understand the designs of the enemy. And to that end, to help understand and break the code, Tom Horn's book, Zenith 2016, we're offering it to you for the list price of $19.95. But with that, these two books by Grant Jeffrey at no charge while supplies last, One Nation Under God and Shadow Government. And if supplies run out.
One Nation Under Attack. Big difference.
Yeah, that is a big difference. One Nation Under Attack. If we run out of the Grant Jeffrey books, because there is a limited supply of those, we will offer other books of similar value, along with Zenith 2016. Again, $19.95 plus shipping and handling from the Skywatch TV store, skywatchtvstore.com. Tom, fascinating work. It's an honor to be here to get to pick your brain about this stuff on a daily basis.
Well, we're going to find out if everybody was right.
That's exactly right. For Tom Horn and Sharon K. Gilbert, we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. To celebrate the release of Nita Horn's inspiring new book, No Fences, Skywatch TV would like you to tell your story, because after all, even if you don't think so, you actually have a story.
Send in your story, and we are going to choose the 10 best, and they'll be published for Christmas release in an anthology of those stories, along with the book that you buy that is actually only $19.95. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
For free. Tom Horn, crazy guy, he's throwing in a journal which on its own, most of these retail for $20 on their own. So this journal is to help you start writing your story. When you buy the book, not only are you going to be enrolled in this and you can send in your story, but you'll get a plastic pony, you'll get a journal of your own, and the proceeds from the book are going to help fund the studio we're building for Skywatch Women. And Nita Horn is going to be one of our panel members.
The 10 authors who are selected for the anthology, published by Defender Publishing in time for Christmas, will also receive a $500 cash prize.
And that'll go a long way at Christmas time, won't it?
Yes, it will. Even if your story is not one of those selected for the anthology, if you've taken the time to write your story, you've left a legacy for your children and for your grandchildren.
Amen to that.
For complete instructions and details on this opportunity, please log on to skywatchtv.com/nofences.